All right, all right, all right. Let's see if they can hear me. I can't tell if they can hear me with this Wi-Fi. Can you hear me? Let's see. Can you go on Wi-Fi? I mean YouTube. See if you can hear me, please, so I can start. This has been something. This has been something, but we are here remixing relationships. There was a problem with the platform that I normally use. So we are delayed but not denied. I hope everybody can hear me. Just give me a moment while I test everything out because I do not want to talk and not hear. Let me see if I can hear. Let's see. Let's see. All right. I hope everybody can hear me. Hello, everybody. Hopefully, you guys will get on. I am coming on later because of the platform that I usually do it on was not allowing me to be great. Can you hear me before I start? And then we're just going to go right to it. All right. All right. This has been this. I'm going to tell you like this before we even get started. It's about 3 hours that I've been trying to film this and being on with customer support and trying to get things together. Yeah, but we're here. So no more about that. All right. Welcome. Let me just make sure everything before I start. You can hear me? Okay. Trying to make sure. All right. Welcome to Remixing Relationships. This is Kendall Anise, the Remix Coach. Hello, 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 hello. If you're just tuning in, it's been about 3 hours since I've been trying to do this. The platform was not working, but we are going to go ahead and kick this thing off. Today on Remixing Relationships, we are talking about fighting fair. How do you fight? Conflict resolution in relationships is all about recovery after arguments. How good is your bounce back game? Now, in relationships, if you're dealing with someone, you're in a relationship, whether you're single, married, or engaged, you will have some type of disagreement because you are not built the same way. You're not from the same place. You are not, your demographics is different. Your experiences are different. The people who you've connected with in the past are different. You're dealing with that person, and that person is dealing with you. And sometimes when you're raised differently, you come from a different background, your mind thinks differently, right? You're not always going to be on the same page 100% of the time. But how do you handle conflict? How do you handle disagreements? Are you the type of person that you need 3 to 5 business days to get yourself together and you're not going to speak or talk? Or are you the person that likes to talk it to death or resolve the issue right away? Do you play fair? Do you hit below the belt? Do you play the ignore the person game? How do you recover from an argument? Do you stay in an argument for a week? What happens when you disagree or you're in an argument? Are you able to bounce back right away, or does it take a long time for you to do that? I want to read something to you when it comes to relationships and arguments. It's about fighting fair and how to fight in relationships. And unfortunately, people don't learn how to fight. They just know that they're fighting and they don't know how to fight properly, especially if they've seen someone fight in their family, if whether it was a parent, whether it was a friend, whether it was you in the past. And if you didn't fight fair with a person, or you think that fighting in a certain way is the right way to do it, it could be unhealthy. And that's what you saw and that's what you mimicked. But on remixing relationships, we want to remix the things that we used to do that are no longer working, or to give you a different train of thought. It's about doing things differently. I'm promoting healthy relationships, and it's important to be healthy when you're in love. And you can also fight in a healthy way. I want to read something to you: how to fight. As I was researching for this show, I saw something on Very Well Mind. It's one of the websites that I love. It's a psychology therapy type of website. So if you followed me on my other podcast, you know this is a website that I love. But it's ways to fight in relationships, and it can be a good thing to fight. Now, we're not talking about fist fighting. We're not talking about dragging somebody, punching somebody, slapping someone. We're not talking about that kind of fight. I'm talking about the fights where you have disagreements and arguments. I don't want to show everything. Hold up. Okay. So let's see here. How to fight. It says it's almost a given that a fight will erupt at some point in a relationship. This is bound to happen when you live or spend considerable time with another person. The good news is that getting angry with your partner is perfectly normal and perfectly healthy. Quiet on the set, please. It picks up everything. Thank you kindly. I don't want to get into no argument on the in the middle of the podcast. All right, so let's see. So, how to fight. Choose your words carefully. Look at things from their point of view. Listen with an open mind. Make requests instead of complaints. Give each other enough time to speak. Fighting is a sign that you both care about the relationship. And 7, it strengthens your relationship. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's also audio, and that's very sensitive to my voice. So for instance, if my man is loud doing something, right? And I'm trying to record a podcast, let's just say, then there's a way that I can say something where it's not disrespectful, it's not rude, it's not. So if I came at him in a different way, then that could be an argument. So you really have to watch how you say things and remix your words and how you express yourself in a relationship so it doesn't cause an argument or a fight. But you're going to give, and this is a big one. I want to say it again: choosing your words carefully. Look at the things from their point of view. Listen with an open mind. Make requests instead of complaints. Give each other enough time to speak. Fighting is a sign that you both care about your relationship. It strengthens your relationship. All right. So let's talk about the 3-day rule after an argument. A 3-day rule after an argument is a guideline designed to help couples work through an argument in the healthiest way possible. By giving your partner time and space to breathe, it's easier to resolve an underlying issue before it has a chance to blow up into something different. And that's the thing. When you're dealing with someone, you have to understand their love language, just like you have to understand how they fight, right? And it's important to, in my opinion, is to stick and stay and have a conversation about whatever it is, because once things start to build up, then the person gets angrier and angrier, and then that leads into something else, or how you respond to a person, or how your disposition is, or your heart posture with the person. So a lot of things can be avoided so you don't even get to that place where you are starting an argument or you have a disagreement. Because most of the time, people fight about the socks in the middle of the floor, and it's really not about the socks in the middle of the floor. But most people think it's that. It's because it's the little things that end up building up. It's like it starts with a hill, and then one thing, and then one thing, and then next thing you know, it's a mountain, or it's like a snowball effect. It's really small, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and then when it's as big as a boulder, right, then that's when the argument ensues, and that's when it goes sometimes beyond repair. Because one thing about arguments, and I think a lot of you understand this and know, and I do myself, is certain things that you can say that you can't take back. So it's important that you learn how to fight and remix how you disagree, and remix different things, the way that you feel and the way that you think. You can kind of verbalize it in a different way, so it's not in attack mode, because the minute you start attacking somebody, they turn their ears off and they don't hear you. You have to put butter on your words. You have to put some syrup on your words sometimes. And this goes for the men and women. So people can understand, that person that you're in the relationship with can understand what you're saying without the harsh words. Because the minute you start talking harsh to someone, they don't hear it. I want to talk about um, fighting fair. Let's talk about that, because fighting fair is something that a lot of people don't do because of spaces that are broken and unhealed. It's difficult to fight in a fair way if your feelings are hurt, or if certain things trigger you, or you have emotions that haven't been dealt with. And like my book, Excuse Me, Your Unhealed, is showing. And sometimes you can argue in a space of that, based off of your past or what's happening in your present. What does it mean to fight fair? It's being respectful and have a structured way of confronting each other on an issue that is causing open or hidden conflict. It is a method for handling and resolving the differences of opinion that inevitably occur between spouses or partners. There is a way to fight fair, and I want to remix the way that you argue. Not say, hey, if you're in a relationship, you shouldn't disagree, you shouldn't argue, you shouldn't debate. It should be apple pie and sunshine every single day. Like this says, if you spend a lot of time with somebody, whether you live together, spend time together, you're connected in a way, it's not going to be 100% all the time. We can make it 99, we can make it 98, even 80% are good odds, but 100% of the time, that's not realistic. Now, could you say, well, I've had relationships and I've never argued, fuss, and fight. I've had relationships that way also. But at the same time, sometimes the underlining, it still wasn't healthy. Because healthy, if you know how to effectively communicate, that's the thing that's healthy. Going out to take out the trash so you can avoid an argument, and then say, okay, we never argue, but you never argue because someone doesn't express how they feel. Somebody in that relationship is suppressing their true feelings. And that's why you don't argue. Or some people don't even care enough to argue because they don't want certain things to maybe be said. So they avoid arguments based off of that relationship, previous relationships, or having conversations with someone, or to be able to say, hey, we never got into an argument. I've been there and done that. And I can look at a relationship that I was in where we never argued, fuss, or fight, but it still wasn't healthy communication there. And avoidance is not a healthy thing. So a lot of people avoid certain things and not talk about them, and then and say that they don't fight about them. But there's something underlining in that typically. Um, the rules of fighting fair. This is from a therapist site, bsu.edu. Before you begin, ask yourself, why do you feel upset? Discuss one issue at a time. That's a big one, because one thing leads to the next, to the next, and then next thing you know, it's a snowball effect of everything that transpired in that day or that week, or even in that particular conversation. No degrading language. Don't be talking about nobody's mama, nobody's dog. Don't be talking about people that they care about or they love, or taking pot shots and low blows. That's not a fair fight, because the minute you start taking low blows and the minute you start talking about somebody's mama or somebody's dog, all bets are off. And that argument is going to be one for the books, and you might not be able to sustain your relationship with those type of arguments. So I want to remix the way that you fight. Even if your tongue got to bleed and you're biting your tongue, it's certain things that should not be said. I remember my mom said one time, we were talking about relationships, and she was saying sometimes relationships are like bricks. And one thing that's said this bad, you put a brick here. Then something else that you say is bad, you put a brick here. Next thing you know, you have a brick wall in between you. And it's so true. When you're dealing with someone, you don't know somebody's sensitive spots. Or if you know somebody's sensitive spots or weaknesses or triggers, in an argument, you might bring up something that they confided in you with. And when you do that, it's like throwing something back up in someone's face that's harmful and hurtful. So even if they argue back and say the same thing, each person is affected differently by those things. And what happens is you build a wall, a brick wall between you. Um, so no degrading language. Now, somebody might be saying, I'm in a relationship, I'm in a marriage, and that's how we fight. We call each other names, we cuss each other out, but then we like what we having for breakfast. And that's dysfunctional. That's not a healthy relationship. Just because you've been doing something the same way for so long, it doesn't mean it's a healthy relationship. It's just that you've learned to work in the dysfunction. And that's what I want to avoid, because that's not a healthy relationship. It's a dysfunctional relationship that two people in there are dysfunctional, and you just made it work, and it's going to work as long as it can. And sometimes you're married 20 years with the dysfunction. And then there's other things going on in the relationship that, I can think of a couple of people that I know who are married. They've been married 30 years, and it's fully dysfunctional. And that's how they've learned to operate, and they're never going to get a divorce. That's just the way it is. And we're not a judgment of other people. If it works for them, it works for me. If they like it, I love it. But I want you to get the maximum you can get out of a relationship, and that's being healthy with that. So you also want to express your feelings with words and take responsibility for them. Let me pause right there. Being accountable, being an adult who is accountable for their actions and accountable for their words, is vital in a relationship. If you have somebody that is not willing, or you're that person, right, that's not willing to be accountable for their actions and for their words and everything is someone else's fault, that's an issue. That's a place of growth and healing, and something needs to take place there. But it can't be someone else's fault all the time. And if it's you, then you have to take responsibility for your actions. That's a quick way to diffuse an argument. It's a quick way to not allow an argument to get out of hand by saying, you know what, my bad. That's on me. I apologize for that. That can nip a argument or a disagreement in the bud. But when somebody is denying something that they've said or done, and someone is trying to continuously blame the other person, whether it's the man or woman, then that's going to prolong a relationship. If I hurt your feelings, I'm saying sorry right away. It's not going to be a conversation. It's not going to be an argument, because it's not about if you thought. You ever hear somebody argue, to apologize, if I hurt your feelings, then I apologize. No, not if, because the person just clearly said, you hurt my feelings. So the way to do that, if you love someone in a relationship, is to apologize for hurting their feelings. The issue of whether you meant it or not, or whether it was how you perceived it, has nothing to do with the other person. And that's what I really want you guys to understand, and I want to stress. Because you're apologizing for hurting someone's feelings, it doesn't mean, number one, that you intentionally hurt someone's feelings, and number two, that you have control in a sense over someone's feelings. Because if you hurt their feelings and they're saying their feelings are hurt, those are that person's feelings. So if they're saying that and you truly care, it's like, do you want to fight, or do you want to be right, or do you want to get along? And you really got to ask yourself, do you want to fight, or do you want to get along? Because in relationships, you have to learn to pick your battles. You have to keep quiet about some things, and then important things you want to speak about. But every little thing, why you cross your leg like that? Why you twink your eye like that? Some people just are confrontational and they just want to fight about everything. And those people are the miserable people in the relationship. And I will go even as sensitive and say those are the people that something is going on where they need to heal. Because some people will fight about the weather. Somebody will say it's hot, and then somebody say it's not that hot. Somebody say it's cold. Somebody will say it's cool. Somebody's going to say up. Somebody's going to say that. Those are people that just want to, they're not happy with whatever is going on, and they just want to argue. And those are the people that you have to watch out for, because every argument doesn't have to be an invitation for you. You can decline the invitation. If you see somebody that just wants to argue, you can decline that invitation to a fight, right? And be able to fight fair, and be able to, you're not always going to see eye to eye, but if you can still do it in love and agree to disagree, or to be able to talk about it in a way that's tender and kind, because you can still watch your tone, you can still watch how you to say things. And even if you find yourself, because people know when they be getting smart, let's be clear, people know in a relationship when they're getting smart with you, or they are I just want to make sure you guys can still hear me, because I can't tell. Can you hear me still on the podcast? Because I can't see the mic, and I just want to make sure, because it's been hours trying to do this. And let me just see something real quick. I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Can you hear me still? Okay. I just want to make sure that you can hear me, because I don't see it. But you want to make sure, some people will try to invite you to a fight and you can deny the fight, and some people want to fight about every single thing. And we're not doing that. We're not fighting about every single thing. All right. So, express your feelings with words and take responsibility for them. And then also, and something I've had to learn, is take turns talking. You cannot hear someone if you're talking, right? And I understand, because I even know, like, if somebody says something, if somebody says you stepped on my toe in an argument, right? The first thing I'm going to say is, I didn't step on your toe. If I hear something that's not true, I want to interject and say, I didn't do that. But what should happen is you should let the person finish their sentence and finish their thought, and then say, I ain't step on your toe. But then they might be saying, you stepped on my toe. And they might say, but I know you didn't mean it. Or I know you were unaware. They could be saying something that will prove your point. They can say, you stepped on my toe, right? But I don't think you knew. So you missed the I don't think you knew, or you didn't hear that part because you were trying to respond and defend. And I know that I've tried to defend my case in plenty of cases. And I know that that was an issue because I was in a relationship where I always had to defend myself, right? I just always felt like I had to defend myself. So then when you get in a relationship and you don't feel like you have to defend yourself, there's still going to be remnants of that in the relationship. So that's why it's about remixing and growing. Stonewalling. Stonewalling, just acting stubborn, like you don't hear nobody, ignoring someone. Those are forms of emotional abuse. When somebody is talking to you and you don't hear them, or they pretend that they don't hear you, they pretend they don't see you, they block you out, they walk away from you, they act like you're not there. That's that's not going to propel the relationship further. What that's going to do is make the other person shut down too. And then if you love somebody, you want to be with them, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to be able to talk things out, and you have to come together in a relationship to talk about how we're going to handle conflict. Right? If you see how you're handling is not working, then you have to say, okay, how are we going to handle conflict, and then do that. And then if it's if you're calling names, if it gets heated, if you're hitting each other physically or with gut punches, then you're going to have to pause, because then you don't want something to get worse and say something again that you can't come back from. And a lot of people do that. But let's talk about recovering, because how is your bounce back? Are you able to recover after an argument? Or do you stay mad, like I said, for 3 to 5 business days? How do you handle it? Recovering after an argument. So let's talk about that. All right. So recovering after an argument with a partner can take time, patience, and perseverance, right? So it's important to be able to allow somebody to get their side out and not cut them off, and you want the same thing. So you might have to, they say, experts say, and I guess I'm one of the experts when I've done my research, that you should never argue at a square table. You should always have a round table, because if you are at a square table, then it's like one person, it's like your opponents. One is on one side and one is on the other. But if you decide, to have a conversation that may get heated, or you're talking about something important and you don't know if it could, like if you sitting at the table and you want to confess that you ate the man or the lady's Cheetos, right? Let's just say you ate the person's snacks, right? You don't want to be an opponent where you feel like you're against each other. And it's a more loving if you're sitting next to the person to bring up a conversation. Um, get yourself together and make sure that you're able to express yourself in a healthy way. Listen actively. Listen to what they're saying to try to understand what they're saying. Not be so closed off where you like, I'm not trying to hear the person. I don't care what they're saying. I don't want to understand what they're saying. You can't be like that. If you want to remix your relationship, and if you want a healthy relationship, you're going to have to care a little bit on what they feel and what they say. You can't say, I don't care about what they're saying. I want to just hear what I'm saying, and I only care about what I'm saying. that's very unfair and that needs to be remixed. You want to express your feelings. Now, I know some of you shut down. You don't want to talk about your feelings. You don't want to say anything about how you feel. But how is someone going to love you properly if you don't talk about how you're feeling? Because what happens is they go to the job and they start talking to somebody about how they're feeling. And then not to you. So you want to invite them openly to talk about how they feel. And you have to be able to accept how somebody feels because it's their feeling. And we're talking about love and relationships here. So if this is a person that you chose to be with, spend time with, date, whatever you're doing, you have to be able to care about their feelings as well as yours. It can't be one-sided where one person talks about their feelings and then the other person, when it's time to talk about their feelings, they out the door. They don't want to hear it. Both people matter in the relationship and both people's feelings are important. A woman's feelings not more important than a man. A man's feelings are not more important than a woman's. Now, we know effective communication is affirming what your partner's perspective is, or saying, okay, let me make sure I understand you. What is it? It's you're saying blah, 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 right? You're saying this because sometimes people hear what they want to hear. And you have to make sure, and especially if somebody hurt you, oh, you're going to recall word for word what they said. But the other person, if they hurt you, they're going to be like, I don't know, I ain't say that, I said that out of anger, I was mad. But the other person is going to hold on to it and they're going to hear every word you say, even where you were, what color shirt you had on, your voice went up at this part and went down. If you hurt someone's feelings, or if you say something, they're going to recall everything you said. But the person that says something in anger, they said it in anger. They're going to totally forget what they said. Um, you want to appreciate and affirm your partner's perspective. You want to say, I understand why you feel that way. I can see how you see things that way. But let me assure you, that's not what it is. I love you. I care about you. You have to affirm someone in the relationship. Men need affirming, and so do women. You can't, just because you don't agree or understand, you can't just block out what they said. You have to really take heed. Now, if you don't care about the person, it's just a relationship that's just, you don't care if it leaves or flees, then you can handle it how you want. But if you want a healthy relationship, it's great to be able to recite back what they're saying and have compassion and empathy for what they're saying, even if you think it's silly. Even if you think it's not that, it's not about what you think in that space. It's about what that person feels or thinks. So you can be able to fight fairly in that way as far as debating or disagreeing. Now, if you disagreeing about everything all the time, ketchup or mustard, stupid stuff, then that's an issue because ain't nobody, what Sweet Brown said back in the day, ain't nobody got time for that. You don't have time for that. I know I don't have time for that. I don't have time to be, I say up, you say down, right, left, the sky is blue. Well, actually, not, the sky is not blue. Actually, it's a little turquoise. It's not blue. Like, nobody got time for that. And I'm not going to stick and stay with no foolishness like that. But if it's somebody that you care about and it's a substantial disagreement and you're trying to understand someone's point of view, then it's worth having a conversation. And sometimes when you have an argument or disagreement, it does bring you closer and it helps you better understand the person that you're in a relationship with. If you because what's going to happen is, if you don't have those type of conversations, then you're going to wake up 5 years from now or 10 years from now and realize, wait, I didn't know you felt that way. Oh, I didn't know you felt that way. Oh, you've been holding it in that long. Oh, well, what is it? And that's what happened. And I've talked to so many people during the pandemic, and all the comedians were joking about it, and they were talking about, you're going to find out that you don't like your kids or your spouse, because people were stuck in the house. safe in the house, as I like to say. And some people do the hustle and bustle with working and taking the kids to school. And some relationships, somebody works in the daytime, somebody works in the nighttime. You're passing like ships in the night. You can get along with somebody if you barely see them, if you barely spend time with them, or you don't know what your kids may like, or different things, because people are so busy with their own schedules and comings and goings. And now people were stuck to have real conversations, to spend time with them. They found out they don't like the same TV shows, they don't like the same movies. One like to read, one like to listen to loud music. You find your people have found out. And the statistics during the pandemic with people getting divorce rates are already 50%, 50-50. 50% make it, 50% don't. But it went down even further during the pandemic, because not that people were fighting stuff, but people realized they just didn't like each other, or they just didn't have things in common, or they just didn't like spending time with the person, because the pandemic made folks sit still. So when I was looking at that, and then all the comedians talking about that, I know so many people who got divorced during the pandemic. But on the flip side, I know so many people who got together during the pandemic, because they were able to get to know each other without seeing them. Like you couldn't go on a date, and people were very creative, because I love creativity in romance. And when people do things outside of the box, and you can see the effort, you can see the creativity, you can see all of that. And during the pandemic, people were having dates on Zoom. The guy was like ordering Uber Eats to their house. They were eating the same thing. They were watching the movies, and people were creative in that way. And so many people got solid relationships out of that, because it was more than intimacy in the traditional way. They got a chance. So you have half the people that divorced and half the people that got together. Last, you want to make a plan. Consider what you've learned about yourself and your partner, and discuss any unmet needs. You can use this information to navigate future disagreements more effectively. I want to say that again. Consider what you've learned about yourself and your partner, and discuss any unmet needs. You can use this information to navigate future disagreements. So basically, you want to work out the kinks. You don't want to keep arguing about the same thing, or disagreeing or debating about the same thing, because then you're not growing, you're stagnant. You want to be able to flow through. And if different things come up, you'll be able to handle them easier, because you're getting to know your mate in a different way. And this can happen even if you're married for a long time, because people evolve and change all the time. If you meet somebody at 18 and you get married and then they're 25, they're not the same person. And sometimes people don't grow at the same level. So if you're not growing at the same level, then somebody might supersede someone, or somebody's differences. You might be like, I thought you liked steak. And somebody might be like, I stopped eating steak 6 months ago. Did you notice? And then that can lead into something else. So you want to make sure that you take the time to understand who you're dealing with. And I've said this before. An older couple, I was in my 30s, and I was like, what's the secret sauce? He was like, a man got to learn his woman. He said, and I said, well, does the woman got to learn man? He said, no, because the man is the leader. The man got to learn his woman. If the man learns his woman, they're going to be together forever. And that's what you got to say. And we got to stop, like we talked about last week. You can't compare another one and how you might have handled something then to the new one, because it's not a one size fits all. Everybody is different. That's why it's important to learn who you're with, so you can you get through things a lot easier. As we wind down, I want to just talk about on zencare.com 7 steps to healing your relationship after a fight. So how are you recovering? Because that's what I want. I want a quick recovery. I don't want you guys holding things, remix it. Whether you were holding things for a week or 2 or 6 months. Some people will hold stuff, and some people will walk around the same house and not speak for 2 weeks. I couldn't live like that. I don't understand how people would do that, but people do it all the time. and they're fine. All right. So, immediately after or during the fight, take an intentional timeout. Trying to resolve an argument when you're both emotionally charged is oftentimes risky. So, it's important to do that to avoid causing additional heat of the moment hurt. Try to breathe and maybe go into another room. Don't leave the house. But if you can go into another room and say, I need about 10 minutes. Now, don't go into the other room for 72 hours, lockdown. I need a couple of minutes to be able to do that. Because some people, I'm the type of person, I want to resolve it right now so we can move on. Like, I don't like stuff lingering in my heart. I know what that's like. I've done that before, letting things linger and then things build up. So then the next per time somebody says something, then you're mad all over again. I like to resolve things quickly and go about things. But you have to have a partner that's able to resolve things too and understand. And sometimes it's the thing that I keep saying, you want to be happy or you want to be right. Because at the end of the day, if you're on the same team, who cares who's right or wrong? Let's see, how can we resolve this? You apologize to me? Yes. I apologize to you? Yes. I love you. How can you resolve it? Not pushing things under the table, but to be able to come to a resolution quickly. All right. So this says stepping away from a glass of water or practicing stepping away for a glass of water or practicing a calming breathing exercise can help you gather your thoughts and return more quickly to an emotionally neutral state. Some couples find it helpful to have a plan in place for arguments, such as an argument that's okay to leave a heated situation if the purpose is to prevent escalation. Others might schedule time a few days later to revisit the conversation once the emotions cool off. So you resolve it at that moment, but then you check back in. You good? Well, we was battling, you good, I'm good, sorry to hurt you, and to really come to the resolution together. um Two, this is about healing after a fight. When the time is right, extend an olive branch. After you've both cooled down, try not to hang on to feelings of anger and hurt. This will only you to more s- cause you more suffering, and it risks further harm to your relationship. So when the time is right, consider offering an apology or an olive branch to speak. Note that being the first to apologize doesn't mean that you're taking sole responsibility for the argument. Rather, an apology is acknowledging that you both been hurt, yet you still care and you are there for your partner. You do want to heal from the argument. I will apologize in a minute. I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm not holding on to nothing. I don't mind. I'll be the first to apologize because I just want resolution. And I want to make sure that I'm clearly heard because what I have to say is valuable and what I feel is valuable, and vice versa. Your person, what they say is valuable and their feelings are valuable. And again, if you decide to be on the same team, you have to be that way in love and in arguments. You have to be on the same team. All right, three, actively listening to your partner's perspective and acknowledge any hurt you've caused. So often, when in the midst of the fight, we're trying so hard to get our own point across that we forget about the other person's point. When you both are in a more rational place, now that time to listen to what your partner has to say, show them that you hear them by practicing and reflective listening. Again, as I talked about, this is ways to heal. Try repeating back what they heard, acknowledge their pain. I can't express that enough. Acknowledge what they're feeling. Acknowledge it. That's the quickest way to heal and get past it. When somebody is trying to prove their point and they saying da 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 da, no. In order to heal, acknowledge someone else's pain that you say that you love, right? Next, while it can be difficult to hear your partner speak about your role in the argument, because some people don't want to hear it. Now, this time to play defensive. That's what people do when they don't want to hear their part. Active listening is important, and you got to hear the person's part, even if you feel that you had a role in and they telling you about yourself. For the most part, you got to listen, because that's how you're going to grow, and that's how you're going to remix it. Share your side without pointing fingers. Avoid starting statements like "you always" or "you never." Start the sentence with a statement with "I." Use statements such as "you just spend money and don't think about the financial repercussions." Instead of saying that implies blame. You spend all the money. You are not responsible financially. You always do this. You always do that. You're going to put somebody on the defensive, and they're going to check out. Period. So you want to say I statements. I get nervous when I see big charges that I don't recognize on our accounts. I want to make sure we're both on the same page about savings. Say how you feel, and you're going to disarm the person that you're in a relationship with. When things have definitely calmed down, return to the root of the issue, because you want to, just because you resolve it quickly, you still want to get back to what the underlining root is, whether it's trust, whether it's money, whether it's communication. Again, it's not about the socks in the middle of the floor. Let's talk about the real issue here. 6, you're going to work together to find a practical solution. Okay, how can we work through this quickly? 7, if you keep having the same argument or having trouble finding a solution, consider couples counseling, therapy, coaching, and all of that. But I want you to be able to heal and recover through healthy conversation and honest conversation, talking about the underlying issue that you're arguing about or disagreeing about. All arguments don't have to be yelling, screaming, fussing, cussing, and all of that. Some can be more heated than others, but if you're both on the same page and you say, let's do what's best for the relationship, how can we resolve this quickly so we can go back to loving and kissing and hugging and laughing? Let's do that, because over 50, you don't have time to be wasting. That's me. Somebody might say over 20, they don't have time to be wasting. That's good. 30, good. 40, good. All of that. But you don't have time to waste about that, especially if you want to love someone and that's your best friend and you want to spend time having a great time. You want to resolve things quickly. You want that bounce back to be quick so you can get to the loving. Now, if you're fighting and arguing more than you're laughing and loving, then I would ask you to reconsider that relationship or go to coaching or counseling to try to heal. I think this was a great episode, y'all. I'm glad that it came out. I appreciate everybody who is watching on YouTube and who is listening to the audio portion. Excuse in advance because it was a lot. The air fryer was going, some other things were going on, but I effectively communicated that, and you don't hear it, right? Because it's about, you're in on a team, right? So what's the team goal? What is it? Right? And I think it's important to be able to recognize how you say things, recognize what you need, and recognize how you can give someone else what they need and still getting your needs met. It's about loving. Remixing relationships is just that. It's about remixing your relationship, doing things differently. Don't bring the same stuff that you had 6 months ago with that person, or 10 years ago with that person, or bringing old stuff to the new person. Or if you're in the dating season, and you're dating different people, find someone who can fight fair. Have conversations if you're out there dating, like, listen, right? Listen, I need to know how you fight. how do you argue? Do you hit the below the belt? Do you cuss me out? Like, how do you do it? And I think all of us are guilty of fighting in an unhealthy way at some point and some time in a relationship. But what you have to grow, you can't keep doing the same things the same way. All right, y'all. I'm so excited about next week because we are going to have an in-house guest that's going to be sitting here, right here with me. And it's for all the single folks. How about we're going to do 5 things to work on to be ready for the relationship that you claim you want? I'm not going to tell you who my guest is, but this is the subject that this guest wanted to talk about. And this guest is not afraid to prove their point, and they're not afraid to speak their mind and their opinion. So this is going to be a good one. It's going to be somebody, I don't know, this side, that side, sitting right here with me on the gray couch. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, whether you listen live or the playback, and to all my audio listeners. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So my audio listeners get a little bit more than the visual. So how this works is the podcast is live every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's live on my YouTube channel, Kendall Anise, right? So if you haven't subscribed, please do so now. So this is the thing. So the next day or later that evening, you'll get the audio, but you get a little more in the audio. So I suggest that you listen and watch the visual on YouTube, but definitely listen to the audio because you're going to get a little more insight, and you're going to get some behind the scenes things in the audio version. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Audible, and beyond, where all your favorite podcasts are played. You can find Remixing Relationships there too. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. God bless y'all. Peace. So, let me just make sure I have the audio right here for this. Let me save that. Perfect. All right. So the audio is off, and I'm going to talk to y'all real quick. I need y'all to share this out. Share it out to somebody that's dating, somebody that's single, looking for a man, a woman, a husband, a wife, whatever they looking for. Send it out to them, and also put this on your socials for me. I appreciate it. I don't have all my accoutrement like I normally do. I had to come through. Let me just say this. There were a couple ways that I could have handled this, right? Because the platform that I normally use was down. I'm not going to shout them out, but if you use them too, they were down. So I just appreciate, we're talking about remixing relationships. Let me keep it real. I appreciate Charles. He was on the phone with those people for like 2 hours trying to get everything up and running. And I decided to go through this way, and decided, he was like, you're still going to do the show, right? Even though it's 3 hours later, you still going to do the show. Somebody going to watch it. Somebody going to be up. I don't even know if somebody watched live, but still going to do the show. And I'm glad that I did. So if one person learns and they're able to have a healthy relationship, and to be able to take some of the things that I talked about today and to apply it to their relationship, then I think I'm okay. And if you're dating and you're watching this, because when you get your man or when you get your woman, you want to be able to recover quickly and fight fair. So I hope this definitely helps. So please share this out and subscribe to the podcast. I think it's places where you can even give like 99 cents if you like it, or you got to look at the little dots under it and all of that good stuff. So, but I thank y'all and I appreciate y'all. Good evening, good evening, good evening. We just had a great show. I appreciate, if you're watching, please share this out. It's a little later than normal, but guess what? That's live. If you're watching it for the first time, it's right on time. All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. God bless y'all. And follow me on all social media platforms at Candelanies.